So we will answer any of your questions that you've got coming to this session, and we will gladly try to solve them for you. Anything we can't resolve directly on the session, we'll come back and pick it up with you. But just a few introductions and set the scene what we're going to cover today. We are going to just look at what the MIEE program is and exactly what it covers. We'll talk about the process of trying to get accredited, but also what support you would get from coming with us on this journey. And then there'll be an opportunity to take any general questions at the end, as well as taking any as we go through at the same time. So in the way of introductions, you've heard me mention Tom, but as far as the program is concerned today, we have got a couple of course mentors that will lead this. So on the call, I'm Martin. I head up helping schools, trusts, colleges move to working more effectively in the world of the cloud, and Office 365, or M365 as it's now known, is part of that journey. And we've also got on the call with me today the managing director of Turn It On, and that's Tom Welsh. So I'm just going to pause a minute. I'm going to hand over to Tom and let him introduce himself and the company.
Thanks, Martin. I do recognise some of the people on the call. This will probably be a little bit rambling, what I'm about to say, because I haven't necessarily prepared a huge amount, but I think the MIEE programme is, I'm really glad there's lots of people here, because I think it's one of the things I'm really proud of at Turn It On, that we started running this programme probably about 4 years ago now, and it's been really, really successful, where schools have had teachers, hopefully yourselves, really engage with the programme. The background to it is, well, in fact, the background to Turn It On, this is our 20th year. So I've literally just sent an email around all of our staff with the date of the 20th year party anniversary that we're going to have in the summer. And the reason I started Turn It On 20 years ago is that I was teaching. I had taught in a couple of fairly large primary schools, Key Stage 2. And what was happening in 2003 is those schools had spent lots of money on IT kit and technology, and in both of those schools it sat around not being used the vast majority of the time. Either it wasn't working, so people didn't feel confident in using it, or even if it was working, the teachers didn't really necessarily know what to do with the technology. So the service that I started back in 2003 was designed to not only be a technical support service and a strategic planning service, it was also always designed to have CPD and training in there, so that teachers could actually get value from a lot of the software and hardware that they've got. And that's, as a support provider, that's really, really hard to deliver from a distance. And what we have tried to do, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, and particularly through the MIEE programme, is create staff digital leaders at schools. And those staff, hopefully yourselves, will be the driving forces for technology and the adoption of technology at individual schools or trusts. And what we want to do on the programme is just concentrate on the Microsoft Office 365 suite that you've all got, that in a lot of cases is free, depending on the licensing that you've got going on in your school, and in a lot of cases is just completely untapped. So if our vision for it is, if we can hopefully get a group of teachers that will work together, a bit like Martin said, as a bit of a community, and we've got teachers from small village primary schools all the way through to large inner city secondary schools, it doesn't matter. If we can get a group of teachers that are engaged with that Office 365 suite, excited by what it can do, prepared to take a few risks in the classroom, prepared to communicate with one another, it can have a really, really powerful impact on not only your school, but then hopefully others as well. Whenever we're talking about using the Office 365 suite, I think we're trying to achieve a few things in terms of teaching and learning. So one of those things is, if I wrap a really good lesson and a really good bit of content in some technology, will some of the kids in my class be more engaged with that learning? And I think that's one thing we're trying to draw out, is that engagement. Secondly is accessibility, and if we will definitely get into immersive reader on the course. Again, free tool included with Microsoft. Some of you may already know it, some won't necessarily. Amazing tool, amazing accessibility tool that kids that might otherwise struggle to engage or understand work, that will help them a lot. Teacher workload, is there ways that we can use the Microsoft Office suite to reduce teacher workload, which would be the kind of the holy grail. I'll finish off just by saying, giving one example of a bit of success we've had with this, and there's been lots, but one of the teachers that came on the very first MIEE program that we ran, and it was either 2019 or 2020, sometime, I can't remember if it was pre-COVID, I think it was just. Key Stage 1 teacher, primary school in Oxfordshire, absolutely engaged with the program, applied to Microsoft at the end of the program, got her MIEE status, has taken it further through the year, over the years with Microsoft, really got her head teacher on board to invest in technology, and then probably 4 or 5 months ago they've become a Microsoft Showcase school, which is and we looked around it, I mean, and there was a lot of things that were satisfying about that visit. Lots of it was just seeing the children hugely engaged with their learning, but also was just the fact that Steph has managed to become a Showcase school, and that was a really great bit of advertising, or is a really great bit of advertising for her school in terms of the parents and the catchment of that area. So that's really what we're trying to do. I'm going to stay on the call. Very happy to take any questions before, now, during or after as well. But I'll hand back to you, Martin, at that point.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so today will be an introduction to what the MIEE is, but also what you can get in the way of support from Turn It On. So as Tom's already alluded to, we conceived this program in the first place when we become global training partners with Microsoft to really bring together communities of like-minded people, so that you had people that you knew before you became an MIEE, and that you could use that to help you advance, but also to support other people at the same time. We also ask that you use us as a resource. So Tom's here, I'm here, there are other people from Turn It On this call today who will introduce themselves at the end, but we're a committed and dedicated team. A huge chunk of my role is living and breathing this every single day, and I'm still in schools on a daily basis, so I see this and I'm working with teachers, and I want to be able to help you to achieve the same thing. And one of the things that we're really proud of is, particularly for the last 2 years, 100% of the people that went with us on that journey, that made applications to Microsoft to become MIEEs, all got through and all got their qualifications. So we've had a really huge success rate with this, and we'd like to then spread that and support you to achieve the same thing. So the Turn It On MIEE course itself, we've got 3 key pillars that we want to achieve, and one is to help you to create accessible classrooms and accessible learning. There's loads of tools in there, and Tom mentioned one earlier, which is Immersive Reader, but there's lots of others too. We'll look at that during the course of this program. It's also to create that really sticky, enthralling, engaging learning, the learning that you have wherever you're age of your pupils or your students. They're going to come in, they're going to join you, and they're going to be enthralled about what you're doing, or you'll have something new to show them. And it's not throwing out those traditional teaching methods at all, or traditional ways of working if you're not teaching and learning focused, because you're welcome to join this journey if you aren't teaching and learning focused. But it's then thinking about how we can use the technology to enhance what you're already doing. And then the final one, and this was really important when I was teaching full time, to find ways to use the technology to work more efficiently, to reduce our workloads. The last thing we want to do is add a burden to anyone's daily lives through coming on this journey. And you will see as we progress through the months ahead of us, there's lots of things you can do to automate processes or streamline what you were doing, or find a different way of working, which means you haven't got to produce lots of different versions of a resource, for instance. So the program itself, one of the first questions I normally get pre and during this is, well, what on earth is an MIEE? Microsoft have got a range of qualifications, and I'll talk about those in a little bit and make you familiar with those. But there's a huge community in the UK and globally of educational specialists that are Microsoft Innovative Educators, MIEEs. And every single year, Microsoft wants to support a new cohort of individuals to become qualified in that program as well. So you don't just join a local community, you join a national UK community, but you join a global community. And there's lots of opportunities for Microsoft to go along and network, either at face-to-face events, so you might be going to BET in March, or you might get involved in lots of virtual events that are there as well. But there are other opportunities if you get lucky to go to other events that are linked with this, such as E2 from Microsoft, which is held in a different country around the world. And this year, Microsoft are trying to get back to a face-to-face event, because hopefully post-pandemic, we can get back to more of a straightforward life. It's about the opportunity to spark off of others that are on a similar journey to you, or are looking at those opportunities that are presented by having the technology around them and what they can do with it. And as I said, this isn't limited to people that are working with children. This can be across the entire organization. You might have a trust role, and actually you do work with school leaders or the staff in those schools, but at the same time, you might not work with young individuals every day. Well, that's fine. You can still benefit from this. And I think it's slightly misleading that it's called a Microsoft Innovator Educator Expert, because it sort of indicates that you should be teaching and learning on a daily basis. As long as you've got some sort of role where you're having an impact on somebody in an educational establishment, then you're fine to go through this, and you would qualify to get accredited. And I've had quite a few people in the past couple of years exactly that. They haven't been teaching and learning focused. You also get to tap into the resources from Microsoft, and we will give you additional resources as well that you can connect with. Then, as soon as you got through the what on earth is an MIEE, well, why do I want to do this? Why am I going to work towards getting the MIEE accreditation? Well, there's lots of reasons, really. But the first is normally that you want to develop yourself. And then as you develop as an individual, acquiring new skills and knowledge, you're either going to help those immediately around you. So sometimes that might be, if you're in a primary school, a phase of education, or it might be a subject. But in secondary, it might be that you're working within a faculty, like a technology faculty. So wherever you find yourself and whatever your current situation is absolutely relevant to be able to go on this journey. And we'll expose you to lots of different apps, either in M365, which used to be called Office 365, is been rebranded, or those other apps that are available that link up with Microsoft 365, and just how you can take them back to your individual situation. On occasions, some of them are more relevant than others, but the feedback overwhelmingly from the previous years is that anything that we've shared with you or shown you has been useful in some way. And if you haven't been able to put it into practice within your role directly, you know somebody else that would benefit from being shown that, so you can go along and help them. As I've mentioned, there is a global community, and once you've become qualified, you will get access to that global community. So the MIEEs from last year that are currently qualified, you're enrolled into a Microsoft Educator community where you can talk to people. If you're struggling with something, you can throw a question out there. You also get invited to exclusive events where you might get access to new technology and developments early before it's released on general release. But at the same time, you get those platforms to go and meet up together. And increasingly, I know that Microsoft are desperate to get back to face-to-face. One of the areas in the UK where Microsoft will hopefully have events this year is that they've got a national store, and I appreciate not everybody is based around London, but their main store is in Oxford Street on London near Oxford Circus, and above that there are some training rooms. I know that some of you are geographically challenged to get to that, but there'll be some face-to-face events in other areas of the country. So I know they're looking at Birmingham and Leeds as well. So you won't always have to travel to London. The opportunities to become an MIEE means that you can get support by joining us on this journey, and you won't have to fathom out all the facets of what's required to become qualified. We will guide you through that. It'll be a curated community, but you also get this little community within the MIEE application process to share ideas. So another aspect that we will offer you by coming on the journey with us is that we will create a dedicated Microsoft team, and we'll sign you all up to that if you want to proceed after today. And in there, we'll put resources from the individual sessions. So typically there'll be one session-ish per month. And we'll look at different areas of apps that are useful, but also different areas of how to put together a successful application and evidence it. And that will build up as a resource that you can tap into, but also it's a community that you can tap into. So you can throw questions out or share things that have been really successful or effective. And what happens is it starts to get really sparky, and people know that that's somewhere that's safe that they can go to, and they can talk about things that maybe other people in the school aren't on the same wavelength, but there's a group of people here that you can go and connect with. There's also the impact on the pupils or the students that you work with. One of the key aspects that's been increased from last year's MIEE to this year is something called 21st century learning design or 21st century skills. A lot of these we're teaching anyway, but in the context of technology, excuse me, so resilience, and also making sure that you've got transferable skill sets so that people understand technology around them as another tool to being a successful lifelong learner. So it's not just about school, it's about beyond school and having skills that will help them be successful as young adults or adults after they leave you. But it's also about thinking about the tools to give them greater access, to use it to be able to just do what they would normally do with a pencil and pen and paper, but maybe have another way of being successful at achieving whatever it is. And also that would transfer to you as individuals. It's not just linked to the pupils and the students that you work with. So before I talk about the application process and what's involved, are there any questions about what an MIEE does or why you might want to become one? I'm just going to go over and quickly check the chat. You can raise a hand or you can just unmute and talk to us. Either is fine. There's nothing in the chat, but I'm more than happy to take questions at this point. Anything out there? Lots of intent faces there. Hard concentration going on. No? Okay, few smiles now. That's good. We like smiles. All right. If there isn't, I will carry on. But as I've said, feel free to ask anything at any time, or if you want to save it to the end, that's equally fine. I know that Tom's having a quick scout around for things continually as well, and there's a few other people here from Turn It On that will gladly help. So the application process changed slightly, and Microsoft amended its qualifications over the summer. So it has a new suite of qualifications. So the entry level qualification where you would begin your journey is to become a Microsoft educator. That replaced an old qualification that ceased in July, August. And there's a new qualification in the middle called a Microsoft Advanced Educator. And then over on the right-hand side is what we're striving for by joining today's session. That's to become a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. At Turn It On, we've got digital professional pathways, and some of the courses that we have available, and they're free webinars for us being a global training partner that you can find on the Turn It On website in the events section. We look at helping people become effective digital practitioners and digital champions. So we take the elements of what is the Microsoft Educator qualification and the Microsoft Advanced Educator qualification, and we run free webinars. So typically, Digital practitioners, people that are using it for their own purpose, would become Microsoft educators. And then you've got people that start to reach out to immediate colleagues or people in their trust or neighboring schools, because you might just network with schools in your area. And those would typically be following the Microsoft Advanced Educator. This year, Microsoft's focused that around how to get to use Teams more effectively, but also that 21st century learning design. And then you have got past those two qualifications and you become a Microsoft Innovative Educator. I'll talk a little bit more about those in just a bit, but just to make you aware of the flow of how things would work. So how you apply, you will have time to nominate yourself, and I've made a typo on that slide. It should say July 2023, not 2022. And there's a program page that when we share the recording of this video, we can share you a copy of the deck as well, and there's a hyperlink to it. But if Tom and Tiana know those pages, could you pop them in the chat? If not, I will pop them in at the end. It's no big problem. But everything stems from the Microsoft Learn Education Center. Previous to July, there was just the Microsoft Education Center, but Microsoft has significantly increased their offering of CPD to schools and staff, but it's also could be used for pupils at primary school age and students at secondary school age, so they can undertake qualifications. But in the Microsoft Learn Education Center, you'll find more information about those two qualifications. So that was a massive overhaul. If you were previously signed up to Microsoft Education Center, your account should have automatically moved across, but I know a few people had some teething issues. So Microsoft Learn Education Center, you may need to get all of your previous accreditation and qualifications moved over, but it's not as painful as it sounds, and Microsoft can get that all sorted for you. I will pop that into the chat in a minute and you'll be able to pick that up. So the Education Center you can sign into with your normal Office 365 account, and your Office 365 account is provided by your organization will more than suffice. But at the same time, if you haven't got one, you can create yourself an Outlook account if you haven't got an institution account, and most people will have an institution account where you can go and sign up. So I'm just going to pop the link for that in the chat, and that will be one of the first starting points. And it also will become your own evidence of your own professional development, because as you get accreditations, you pass courses, you get qualifications in there, it will build up as a portfolio that you can share with the leadership team in your school. The next step is another updated one, and to become an MIEE, a Microsoft Innovative Educator, which is why we're all here today, you need to complete on Microsoft Learn the Microsoft Educator qualification and the Microsoft Advanced Educator qualification, which is one of the reasons why Turn It On has introduced this year free webinars to support you in doing that, which are on the events page on our website. So you can join those in between these sessions if you need them, to give you additional support to complete those courses in Microsoft Learn. If you don't need them and you feel that I understand Teams, I know all about it, we've been using it since lockdown, it's fine. Go ahead and complete the Microsoft Educator or the Microsoft Advanced Educator courses independently. But what we're doing is we're offering you that additional support free of charge. Because as Tom said at the beginning, we're all about supporting you in developing and making more of that technology, just not that technology sitting there in a redundant form. And then step 3 will be what we work towards over the coming months. And that is getting you familiar with what a successful Microsoft Innovator Educator Expert application looks like, but also helping you gather the evidence for that as you go along. We'll also talk about the application format. So there'll be lots of opportunities to then say, I'm not quite sure, Martin, am I going in the right direction? Is this sufficient evidence? Or I've done this is really amazing, and everyone else can go and pick it up. So Tiana's put a link in there if you need to go and join up on any of those webinars. Learn itself will look a little bit like that when you get there. And as I've said, the sign-in button's in the top right-hand corner where that yellow finger is pointing in on this slide. Those two qualifications, Microsoft Educator and Microsoft Advanced Educator, are prerequisites and have to be completed, which is a difference from any prior years. If you're a returning MIEE, you still need to do those as well. It's about 6 hours of learning to do the Microsoft Educator if you complete all of the videos and tutorials going through, but if you know it, you can skip to the end and you can complete the questions anyway, so you don't have to waste that time. And I know that time is precious anyway from having been a teacher previously. And then the Microsoft Advanced Educator is about 12 hours if you read all resources and watch all videos. But again, if you understand about Teams or 21st century learning design, you can skip through, answer the questions, and then get accredited that pathway. Most people, is the feedback I've received so far, have not been too troubled by Microsoft Educator because it's entry level and it's not too demanding. A lot of people, for the Teams element of Microsoft Advanced Educator, have found it fine, but they've needed to go and study for 21st century learning design because it's a new concept. And actually, when you get there, it isn't really that new because it's what we do all the time as educators, but it's just put in the context of technology. And there might be some terminology used by Microsoft that you just need to be familiar with to successfully answer the questions. And then it's on to the Innovative Educator Expert. So there is a new self-nomination application process for this year. So when you come to completing it, there is a document where you can collate your evidence, but we'll also talk you through that. And there are 3 distinctive process steps. One in that document is to talk about you. The second is to answer some questions that are marked by AI. There are no humans involved in that. It's a straight wrong or right from multiple choice. And you need to get 70% or more in those. And then phase 3 are long answer questions, where you would talk about the learning from the weeks that you've spent with me and the months you've spent with me, but also from completing the Microsoft Educator questions and the Microsoft Advanced Educator questions. Approximately July the 14th, because the date hasn't been fixed yet, you will be able to submit your application to become an MIEE. But normally, if you make that submission approximately a week before, one of the applications team at Microsoft will have a quick scan through it, and they'll check for anything that's either not thorough enough or just needs a greater level of explanation, and they'll fling it back to you, and you've got approximately 7 days to improve it before you resubmit it again. So we will help you by joining the Turn It On program to prepare for those phases. And as well as looking at applications in M365, we'll walk you through those phases during the course. So what you get is a lot more support than going it alone. It's useful if you can attend as many sessions as possible. However, it's not absolutely essential. We do vary the afternoon. So typically they're a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon, but I know you've got things like staff meetings and other commitments. So they will always be recorded and they will always go in the Teams community, so you can go and pick it up and you can ask any questions and people in there will help you. For those of you that are more visual, there's a rough timeline here. So there has been a mop up in December for anyone who failed to get MIEE previously. And that's often one of the questions we get at the end. If I'm not successful in July, is it the end of the world? Well, no, it's not. Sit on the evidence, add to it subsequent learning, and then resubmit in December 2023. And there's a second bite of the cherry there to get your qualification through. But there's also various other milestones that will happen there, like the E2 conference, like BET, like online MIEE applicant communities. So you'll get invited to some of those where, although you're trying to become an MIEE, they throw the doors open and they'll show you what sort of community you can join when you come fully fledged and qualified. So from Turn It On, we've spoken about the program. You're going to get 5 Teams meetings focused on Office 365 or M365 apps in each. There will be 2 Q&A sessions with current MIEE, some of those from Turn It On, some of those from schools like the school that Tom spoke about in his opening section. We are hopefully going to also have the ability to either do a virtual, possibly on site in summer 2023, to go to a Turn It On school that's got showcase status, but there's a member of staff there that started out years ago, a couple of years ago, not that many years ago, as an MIEE, and it's grown in mushroom from there. So we are going to have an event where we can invite you to, that you can come on site, but there also might be the opportunity to join that virtually as well. There is hopefully at the end of this process a face-to-face session, and we'll invite you into one of our offices where we'll book out our meeting rooms for the day and we can have you to come together as a community. So we'll try to make this as face-to-face as possible this year round. There is continual support throughout. So Tom, myself, and some of the other Turn It On employees on this call today will staff that team that you're invited to, and we will keep an eye on it. And if you're stuck with something or somebody in the community can't answer it or support you with it, we can dive in and help you at the same time. But also you've got that support for the self-application, which overwhelmingly the feedback from the prior years has been that's been the really valuable bit, knowing what to put, knowing what evidence being looked for, what's good quality evidence, what's going to be a waste of time. We can help you with all of that. And then there's an optional on-site consultancy, but that does come at an additional cost if you require that, but it's there for you if you wish to take it up. So as far as we're asking for your commitment, if you're coming on that journey with us, be brave, try things, go out of your comfort zone, out of your classroom, out of your office, whatever your role is, out of your caretaker's room, because I've had caretakers complete this before, site services staff, but be bold and have a go. Don't be scared. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it will blow up in your face ever so slightly. Not the end of the world. Come back together, we'll regroup, we'll talk about it, and we'll understand how we can be more successful next time we use it. We want you to help our community to be vibrant, talk to each other, work in that team as well as working in the global MIEE community. You can keep track of what's going on because you can compile evidence. You could do that in a Sway, you could do that in a video, you could do that in a OneNote, but also all of those apps I've just mentioned are things that we will look at during the course of this program, but also it will involve you being committed to try and make sure that you submit a nomination at the end of this so we can get as many of you through as possible and qualified to become MIEEs. Start to make a real difference beyond your classroom, in your school, in your trust, or with your network of schools that you work with. And quite often I find out that MIEEs, once they're qualified, start to work globally. So they get invited to speak at Microsoft events, or they might go to local network meetings and have a platform to talk about and showcase what they're doing in their own school or their own trust. The rough timeline of events that we have at the moment, the dates are down the left and the individual specific focus for those events are on screen now. We are going to try not to change those as far as possible, but occasionally things beyond our control influence the odd change of a date, but they would be within the same week. We wouldn't radically change those dates. Those dates are also available on the sign up pages, which Tiana from Turn It On will pop into the chat for you so that you can sign up if you haven't already done that, if it's something you're interested in. But we've also got, when we share the deck with you at the end, we have useful links on the Educator programs page to the Microsoft Educator course in Learn, the Microsoft Advanced Educator course in Learn, and getting started for Teams for Education and OneNote for Education, because you may or may not use those to some degree. So you can sign up absolutely now. And as I said, Tiana's going to put the link in the chat. If you haven't done it already, feel free to sign up. If you're not sure, sign up again, because we can always compare. And if you've already completed it, not the end of the world. We're trying to draw a deadline under that by Friday, the 10th of February. So we know exactly who we've got on board and we can build that community and make sure that you're enrolled in the team and so forth and welcome you onto that. Also share with you the links to the Teams meetings coming up. So you'll always have those in advance so you can click on them and you can jump into the live sessions like this. We're really friendly. We are not going to be intimidating. We're welcoming to any ideas. And even better, we all work with technology and schools and education on a daily basis. So we understand where you're coming from. And if on the odd chance we don't understand, we will know somebody that does understand and we can connect you with them. So that's all part and parcel of the benefit of coming into this community and working with us together. There's some good ideas of people to follow. So Jen King is the UK education lead. Mike Tholson is an education evangelist. He's based in America, but he tweets and shares things on LinkedIn regularly. We also do as a company, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So really at this point, I'm going to ask you if there's any questions, but also I'm going to throw it open to the floor and let you just ask away. Normally there's quite a few questions at this point. So over to you. Is there anything you'd like to know, anything you'd like to expand upon further? We will do what we can to help you. John, you've popped your hand up. Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, hi Martin. Just a quick question. We're education consultants, so we provide consultancy to schools on education strategy and are looking to expand into Microsoft training specifically. So in terms of us becoming MIEEs and the evidence, will you kind of support with that evidence for us? Because obviously we don't, as you said earlier, work with kids in the classroom on a daily basis, but we do a lot of training and a lot of consultancy to schools.
Yeah, you're welcome to come on the journey, and that would, by joining the course, it would get you to become an MIEE, which would no doubt help you with what you're trying to do, supporting education community yourself.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions at all? None at all. Other?
Yeah, we've got Dave. Hi, Dave.
Okay, Dave, go for it.
Yeah, hi there. Speaking on behalf of other staff from my school who are here, we are not really interested in completing a qualification. What we want to do is just make sure that we get the best use out of the technology we've got, which is where we started this conversation. Are the materials that we could get access to through the program useful to us, even if we don't complete the qualification?
That's a good question.
Really good
Martin,
question.
do you want to stop sharing the screen? I don't know if you were on at the start, Dave, when I was talking about the original reason for this. Is to create staff digital leaders in schools and people that are really engaged with the technology and can see what it can do. As a byproduct, hopefully people will get Microsoft qualified, and that's good for their CVs and all of those sort of things. But it is a byproduct. The main purpose is what you described in your question. That's what we're trying to do. So 100%. The whole point of this is it's very practical. Martin will run the input sessions. Everyone's in a team. We create a Microsoft team that everyone becomes part of. We do the input sessions, then we leave, like those dates show, 2 or 3 weeks for people to try things out in their schools that are linked to those sessions that Martin's done, hopefully collaborate with each other on the team, and it's all very, very practical. And then if you decide actually, and lots, to be perfectly honest, if you decide actually I don't want to apply for the Microsoft qualification at the end of it, that's totally fine. We've got no, that's absolutely fine, doesn't matter at all.
That's good news, because you can probably see from my image on the screen that I'm really not interested in my CV. Cheers. Thanks.
No problem at all. And that has been one of our aims from the beginning, as Tom just said, but also one of the feedback points is quite regularly echoed, that even if somebody decided not to, and recently we've been really, so some of the people, and I hear what you're saying, Dave, I completely understand it myself, some of the people have got halfway through the process and thought, you know what, to hell with it, it actually isn't that much of a problem to pop a bit of evidence into a form and fling it into Microsoft. And most of the time, because they've been with us on that journey, they've got the evidence anyway. So it's completely up to you. But yes, my main aim is to help you make more of the technology, and for that to have a positive impact on you and the teacher and the teachers you work with and the pupils and students you work with.
Okay, thanks for that.
Anybody else? I'm looking for hands up. I'm just going to check the chat as well. What was the pass rate? For the last 2 years, everyone that's put in an application with us has passed. I don't know what the national pass rate is because Microsoft don't share that with us, but I know so to be perfectly transparent, back to Dave's question, not everybody that signed up at the beginning submitted an application, but out of those that submitted an application, we didn't have anybody that was unsuccessful. Everybody passed.
And we meet the people that are running the programs from Microsoft on a probably monthly basis. So Martin and I are meeting them tomorrow. So we generally get good feedback as to how things are going.
Any more questions from anybody? No? Okay. Well, I will pause there and just let you all drift away and get back to what you're doing. But at the same time, if there's any individual questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Maureen, I can see you popped your hand up. Have you got anything you'd like to ask? Feel free to unmute, Maureen. You're more than welcome to ask anything. You pop it in the chat. If the mic's not working, sometimes I know it can be a little bit temperamental, so it's not a problem. If you want to type that in there, I can have a read of it. Think I can hear you?
Yeah, what I want to know, you provide us with a schedule for deadlines. Oh, he has? Yeah. All right. Ignore me.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think you might have a slower broadband connection or something there. No worry. Okay. Any other questions at all? Otherwise, I will stay here to the end until everybody's left, and I'm happy to take those more individualized ones if you don't wish to ask it in front of the whole audience. We'll also pause the recording at this point, so if you are watching the recording, thank you very much for being with us, and feel free to email into office@turniton.co.uk if you've got any questions. We can pick them up after the session anyway.